So next up is Mr. Kenneth Ng from Razer Inc., a company that needs no introduction. Kenneth is a seasoned sustainability professional with over a decade of experience in managing sustainability campaigns. Kenneth will share why setting public standards on measuring electronic products emissions, adopting a life cycle thinking approach, and providing learning opportunities for the next generation of sustainability talents will be paramount to the growth of the semiconductor industry in the region. So let us welcome on stage Mr. Kenneth Ng, Go Green with Razer, forging a path for a sustainable tech industry. Hi, Mr. Kenneth. And over the stage to you.
A very good morning to everyone, to Chairman Andrew Chong, to Wee Sing, Executive Director, for inviting me. My name is Kenneth Ng. I'm the Global Sustainability Lead for Razer. So today I'm going to share about why we feel that there is a need for us to work together with our value chain partners to forge a path for a sustainable tech industry, not just in Singapore, but in the world. So if you don't know Razer, we are for gamers by gamers company. So our perspective will come a little bit more downstream, sharing about how the gamers, how the end consumers would really like to see a more sustainable consumer electronic industry, semiconductor industry by extension. Hopefully it gives some affirmations to the good work that you guys are doing to make the industry more sustainable. So a little bit about us. We started from Singapore. Then we have grown to be more than 19 countries worldwide, and we have over 1,500 employees. We are a very beloved brand by gamers. We have in our network ecosystem of hardware, software, and services 500 million gamers. So back then in back then in 2019, UNEP mentioned a study. It's called Playing for the Planet. So UNEP mentioned that if climate action were to take place, the next frontier for climate action would be with the gamers, because the gamers are generally younger demographics. So in our gamer community, we have around 80% that are millennials or Gen Z gamers. We have over 3.2 billion gamers around the world. So if you are doing Candy Crush on your mobile phone, you are also considered a gamer in our demographics. Yeah. And this gaming industry is expected to grow over 200 billion in the coming years. And we are also looking at having more people to join us, and I think the revenue will eventually overtake streaming and other kind of services. Yeah, so this is how passionately our gamers really loves us. So they really tattoo our logo on themselves. The most exaggerating case that I've seen was one of the gamers actually had to change a prosthetic eye. So he decided to engrave our logo on his prosthetic eye. So when you look into the gamer's eye, you realize that you see a logo of Razer. So this is something very humbling for us, because we feel that this is a lot of trust and a lot of affirmation to our brand. And we're just thinking about how can we harness this to really drive it towards a good cause. Yeah. So I think that is how we embark on a journey of sustainability. We realize that when we are dealing with Gen Z millennials, they're actually very enlightened. They are not a typical consumer who just buys something when they see advertising. They do their research online, they compare products with products, and they want to make sure that we're telling them the right things, the company is ethical, then we are responsible in terms of our manufacturing, in terms of social context, and of course to the environment. So this is something that we feel that there's a need for us to go into sustainability, and hence since 2021, although we started way earlier, we have driving full force into sustainability. Yeah. So a core strategy for us in terms of our sustainability journey is the type of eco-label that we want to really introduce to all our products. So I've made a commitment starting from this year onwards, all our products will be will be getting an eco-label. So eco-label is actually very prominent because in recent years, we realized there is uptick on FTC and class-level lawsuit against people making green claims. Greenwashing, there's a lot of greenwashing this when it comes to end consumer-facing partners. So I think it's very important to actually stress on making sure that we really address what we are doing to our consumers, and also, of course, be factual to what we claim to the consumers. So there are a couple of eco-labels, and I think just now Carbon Trust also mentioned they do have the eco-label service as well. I think this is actually very important for us to make claims. What I want to stress is that we have this approach internally called the life cycle thinking approach. It means that as a company that's very close to the end consumer, we should not just look to ourselves and end consumer. We should move upstreams and work with people from the semiconductor industry, our supply chain, our value chain partners, to adopt what we call a life cycle thinking approach in terms of our product or disclosing the environmental attributes, the footprint of your product to the end consumer. So I think this is actually very important. So over here with Razer, our engineers and our analysts are trained with life cycle analysis skills. So they put up modeling from cradle to grave. What is the carbon footprint of every product in the different life cycle stages? So I was listening to Russell's speech earlier, and I noticed that the semiconductor industry is actually doing a lot to cut down their footprint. So I think what I'll do when I go back is that I'll revisit my numbers. Probably the numbers that I'm used to in the life cycle analysis does not adequately reflect the good work that the semiconductor industry has been doing together. So I think this is something that is very important. And I think Minister earlier also mentioned about benchmarking. So the benchmarking will be a very good indicator for people to understand what is the carbon footprint of each product life stages. So what we do over here is that we manage every single step of the product life cycle, from the raw material, mineral extraction, manufacturing, logistic transportation, and use phase. Use phase is actually very important for us because when you make the product more repairable, you make it available for use at a longer period, it drastically cut down the footprint of the product. And last but not least, we want to address end of life of product. We want to be able to make e-waste recycling available to more end consumer. Yeah. So earlier this year, we have launched our world's first gaming mice to be certified with Eco Logo. So this is a Type 1 Eco Logo. Basically, it means that we have been audited on every stage of the product life cycle. We work very closely with our suppliers, our value chain partners to actually validate and audit them before we can win this award. Yeah. So I think this is something that is an important milestone for us, but we feel that too few end consumer companies have been doing that. So we really want to encourage more partners to have an eco-label thinking, to have a life cycle thinking in the manufacturing of our product, designed with an intention for sustainability by working with a value chain, because that would improve the repairability and also to look at how we can extend the life cycle of the product. Yeah. So some of the measures that we put together in our ecosystem for a greener product is that we want to make sure that when you buy into a Razer product, you're not buying into a product that is a one-off relationship. We want to make sure that you are able to actually buy into an ecosystem. So we started selling spare parts. So if your product is easy repair, you don't need to send it into the service center. You can actually buy your spare parts and do the repair for a certain aspect of the product. So I think this is actually very important, and a general trend from what I understand in US, there's also a trend to make the right to repair available beyond the OEM manufacturers and to be repaired with any other qualified repair centers. So I think it's actually very important to have a life cycle thinking, to look into responsible manufacturing and design to make sure that the product remains sustainable and more accessible to consumers to repair and to extend the lifespan of the product. Okay. So for Razer, I think just now Ying actually mentioned the SPTI. So I think SPTI is actually a very important initiative that Razer has also signed up with. We have committed. We are looking to validate our emission reduction targets. So we are committing at least 4.2% annualized absolute reduction of our carbon emission, and we do so by setting goals for our partners to actually work with us, for our employees to work with us to cut down emissions. So for instance, we ban single-use plastics in all our corporate offices worldwide. We started to remove any plastic foams and stuff in our packaging. So when the packaging, we can drastically cut down the emissions. We are committed to 100% renewable energy by 2025. A shout out to my friend from Semiconductor supporting us on this journey. And by 2030, we are committed to actually have 100% of our product to be tapping on recycled material. Yeah, so when we are manufacturing mouse, there tend to be some plastic. We want to minimize the use of virgin plastics and to maximize the use of recycled plastics without compromising the quality. Yeah, so I have spoke to some journalists. The journalist has been asking me, why not make it 100% recycled plastic? I think in the ideal world that would be good, but unfortunately when it's 100% recycled plastic, it's also more brittle. Yeah, so the key driver over here is to make sure that the product remains usable and survive all the drop tests, the regular tests, is durable, lasts a long time, and we cut down emissions as much as possible. Yeah, so this is some of our key milestones for our sustainability. Reduce as a top priority. Recycle whenever possible. Yeah, so I think as we are much closer to the end consumer, it's important that we make recycling available to end consumer. And we want to incentivize them doing that. Just to really talk about what we're doing as a life cycle analysis, internally when we're doing life cycle analysis, we always assume the worst case scenario. Yeah, you can't expect the end consumer to really very responsibly send it for certain recycling. So the scenario that we always assume is landfill, unless we have statistics to prove that the recycling program is actually has a certain traction, has a certain representation of say 50% of consumer that will really recycle with us. So what we are trying to do over here is that we have Razer store worldwide, and we want to make sure that they are able to really recycle with us. And when they recycle with us, we want to give them a voucher so that they can actually incentivize them to always recycle with us. So these are little things that we put together to improve recycling of our products. So for any manufacturers or any brands that's closer to consumer, ultimately we want to be able to close the loop. Yeah, this is it's still a very far-fetched goal for a lot of people, but we can make incremental steps towards closing the loop. And last but not least, I think restore as a last resort. So I think what we mean by restoring is that we believe carbon credits has a role to play. I think this is not a convenient topic to talk about, but I think not all carbon credits are created equal. I think I echo Minister Grace Fu's speech on Article 6, COP26. I think carbon credits still have a role. We are committed to reduce as much as possible. And at the last mile, when reduction is not possible, then we will use offsets. And we make sure that we use quality offsets that has addressed additionality and of course traceability to ensure high quality carbon credits. I understand MAS is actually doing a lot to really address the quality of carbon credits and other environmental attributes. So I think we are really setting up a good ecosystem for manufacturers and for end consumer brands to really drive to net zero. Okay, the next topic is actually something that I feel is actually very important, often not talked about. I'm very heartened to see this in just this morning alone, at least 2 to 3 speakers talk about this. I think cultivating talent, sustainability talent in the future is actually very important. Singapore is going through a transition, economy transition. We're gearing ourselves to be a knowledge base. we are actually trying to be a decarbonization hub for the region. So I think it correspondingly is only right that we actually help to foster a number of talents. As Singaporeans, we all know, right? Like when we feel that we're lacking in certain skills, we like to go for course and get certs. Yeah, getting certs makes Singaporeans feel better about themselves. But I think this, while training is definitely essential, but I think more importantly, we want to be able to create the opportunity for on-the-job training. So I think since the start of COVID, I think the government has done a lot of initiatives to actually put job placements for companies to actually, for young fresh grads to be exposed to different industry. I also met a lot of young people that they are very grateful for the chances that's been given to them. So I think our youth over here really need a chance to be exposed to the industry. And I think especially in the field of sustainability, it's so wide. I'm also learning on a daily basis. There's no one person who can attend one course and know everything. So it's essential and it's paramount that we provide the industry exposure for our talents of the future. So we want to be able to send them on industry training. We want to be able to let them meet stakeholders, understand the entire value chain, so that they can actually inculcate the life cycle thinking in their approach. And as they advance through the career, they will have more robust ideas and initiatives to really drive across sustainability. So I think that is very important. I'm also very heartened to notice that for SSIA, there's a lot of programs. Yeah, so I think all this industry program is actually very important. And over here, I really like to call upon our industry players to really support SSIA to really make industry exposure more prevalent in Singapore and to let our young people take up the lead and drive sustainability from Singapore and leading sustainability around the world. Yeah. So I'll just end off here by giving some key takeaways. So obviously, the road to sustainability is not, to be a more sustainable tech industry is definitely not easy. We need to be really focused. And I really want to echo Sing Ying's point earlier is that while we can strive for quick wins, I think more importantly, it's a more sustained approach. The more sustained approach, and no longer a company can just look at themselves and what is within their operational control to really drive change. We need to talk to our value chain partners. We need to understand how they work. And when we design products, we need to talk to our value chain partners to really understand how best can we optimize the design, how best can we further cut down emissions. We don't know what we can't measure. So by measuring, understanding a baseline, we can then drive change. And of course, I'd like to really focus, share one of the key takeaways is that we want to really encourage a life cycle thinking and to encourage partners to really go into a type 1 eco-label, which is audit on every single life stage of your product manufacturing. And last but not least, I think talent is the key for the survival of Singapore in this global climate. We want to welcome foreign talents who are really good and can really expose our young people towards, in terms of knowledge, in terms of best practices. But we also want to support our youths so that they are able to really drive change, give them enough industry exposure so that they can be the leaders of tomorrow. And the time to do it is now, because any delay, we are really not leading the pack anymore. Yeah, so I think I've spoken enough. So I think I'll just end over here. So it's really a pleasure talking to you guys, and I look forward to addressing any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Kenneth from Razer Inc. Yes, we do have some questions, as you can see from the screen there as well. Let me present to you. How does gaming industry contribute to energy conservation? Value of gaming? We have actually 3 votes for that question. Yes, so you may like to address them.
Yeah, so this is actually a very good question. So when you look at gaming, right, you look at all the RGB lighting, and the last thing you will really associate gaming is sustainable. Why is it sustainable? You are using so much light when you don't have to do so. I think we can't change human behaviors, what we can do is we can optimize human behavior. So the internal approach in Razer is that when we talk about specifically on energy conservation, we have rolled out softwares to help them cut down the energy usage in terms when they are powering their RGB lighting, when they are running their extensive gear to run games and stuff like that. So I think we want to be able to help end consumers save energy and have a better efficiency at running their games. Yeah, so this is our approach. And of course, we do some educational videos. We have this campaign called Sneaky Snake, and we do really roll out this animation to really tell gamers what they should be doing to really cut down their emissions. And of course, we have this annual blackout week. We tell the gamers that, you have been gaming way too much. Why not you just switch on your computer for a day and go out and meet your friends? So I think we are doing incremental steps to really encourage them to really do energy conservation. Another thing is that we have rolled out products to really help address the heating of their device. So by cutting down the heat, it improves the efficiency of the energy. Yeah. So I hope that answers. Yeah.
Indeed, very interesting question, I realize as well. Okay, we have another question. What are the key criteria to be classified as green products?
Yeah, I think this is also a very important question. So when we first started out the campaign, we have 4 pillars: green organization, green products, green investments, and green community. As we get more mature in our sustainability, we realize that it might be problematic to call it green products. Yeah, so what we noticed that internally, that there's a lot of cases of lawsuits and on greenwashing. So I think green products is actually too generic a term. So talking about greenwashing, right? So we want to be able to be really specific with our terms. So I think over the years, we have slowly moved away from green products per se. We will talk about responsible manufacturing. And we have very specific standards, ISO standards that we define responsible manufacturing from. Yeah. So what I realized in the industry is that a lot of people, I think they have the most sincere of consideration, but I think it's because we are really caught off guard on this kind of claims. So we got to be really mindful of that and claiming what to be really specific about our claims and really moved forward from here. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Any other questions that's coming in through? Just to quick check, because currently we have 2 questions for Kenneth. All right, I think all is good. Thank you so much, Kenneth, for your presentation. Really appreciate that.